One of the biggest concerns people have for living the tiny house life is a place to actually put their tiny house, somewhere that's legal and somewhere they can feel comfortable and have access to utilities or create the utilities that they need off-grid or whatnot. So just right off the bat, I'm gonna let you know I'm not an expert in like zoning and planning and like what's legal and what's not. There's some really, really smart people out there leading that charge. I see myself more so as just someone who's like an overall spokesperson within my subset of knowledge to help spread the message of tiny houses and provide solutions. But having said that, after seeing thousands and thousands of stories and having those stories shared with me of people who live in tiny houses, here is a list of 7 ways that I've noticed people are parking their tiny houses. Quick hint, I'm gonna say what I think is the best way to park your tiny house for last. The first way you can park your tiny house is to rent some land. And when I say rent land, you can look under Craigslist or other websites for parcels of property that people own that have perhaps a trailer used to be there, and it has a septic tank or access to sewage facilities or whatnot. There's already some utilities in place. Perhaps like, you can just literally hook your tiny house up to electricity that's already there, or you can rent land from someone that doesn't have any utilities and you just kind of go off grid. Another option is maybe not as attractive as some people, but perhaps to others, and it depends on the location, but is to park your tiny house in a mobile home park. I grew up in mobile home parks. I'm not gonna say I actually grew up in them, but I've lived in them before, and depending on the one that you park it at, there could be some shady characters, but that could depend on the location again. There could be some other very nice mobile homes. So something you have to fill out for yourself. I think what'll happen is in a lot of mobile home trailer parks is that you'll have to have the facilities in your tiny house to be up to the standard. In other words, like have like a way to dispose of your black water and things like that, and a way to easily hook up to the electric grid. A benefit of living in a mobile home park is it's not permanent, so you could park your tiny house there and pay a monthly fee until you're able to figure out a solution that works better for you. And oftentimes a mobile home park, to park your place there, is pretty cheap. I used to be in the Air Force and I lived in a mobile home, and the parking there I think was like $150 a month. I mean, that was a while ago, but still. So anyways, that could be an option for you. Park your house in a mobile home park. Another option that I think is even more attractive, but the price might reflect that, is to park your tiny house in an RV park. That is very, very common in the tiny house community. And again, that's another temporary solution, or it could be long-term, depending on what you want to do. Is park your house in an RV park. And in the RV park, there'll be other, people living a very similar lifestyle to you. And there may be, even if it's a popular area where there's lots of tiny houses, there may be even other tiny houses in that mobile home park. I had some good friends that I know used to park their bus long-term in a mobile home park, and the husband, he did work there in the mobile home park to make their parking way more inexpensive, and it could have even been free, I'm not sure. But there's tons and tons of stories like that too. So the RV park probably is very similar to a mobile home park in that you have to be able to hook up to the facilities correctly and not be completely off-grid in terms of like a composting toilet. But that, I'm not sure about that either. You might be able to get by with that depending on the RV park that you choose. One option that's really popular to park your tiny house is, let's just change locations. Another option that's really popular in the tiny house community is to park in someone's driveway or park in someone's backyard. You see that a lot. And the one issue with this is a lot of times it's not legal. So if you do this, you might be practicing like a little bit of civil disobedience, but it's possible that it is legal, and more than likely it'll be if it's outside the city. Plus it'll be off the radar. Like if someone lives in a nice neighborhood and there's beautiful homes around, expensive homes, and then you go and park a tiny house in the backyard, it's probably going to race with questions. A lot of people probably won't like that. So this right here, this method, parking in a driveway or a backyard on someone's property, is very, very location dependent, in my opinion. But very, very good method, because then you can, go ahead and tap into the home's electric system, and if you have a composting toilet, that makes it really easy. You don't need to tap into their septic, but that is still another option. Another option is to park your tiny house on a farm, like a working farm, or like in a super rural area. I used to run a website called tinyhouseparking.com, and that's slowly being phased out. And the reason that's being phased out is we're going to soon be allowing parking listings, for rent and for sale on the tiny house listings website. So that's going to be huge. So for example, if you see a tiny house for sale like in I don't know, Portland, Oregon, right? And there's land available in Portland, Oregon. You'll see parking listings underneath that, so it'll kind of help tie it together. You may be able to just buy a house on tiny house listings and find land right there all in one spot, so that'll be nice. But I used to see a lot of listings where people had some beautiful ones, like a stream running through Montana, and there was like a little area right there on the stream that you could rent on people's land. You know, just park your tiny house off grid or whatnot. But on the working farm is a good idea too, because it's a really good way to help supplement a little bit of income for a farmer. Like in the off season, they get income from you parking there, and also there'll be plenty of privacy for you, probably because of the vast amount of land that they have. You could park way off in the back or something like that, or in a very rural area that people have, not necessarily a farm, like just a big piece of land they own or something like that. You could work that out as well. So that's a really good area to park. That's a really good option to park in a rural area or like on a working farm. Another way you could park your tiny house, is more of a method than a way, is to find a situation where you can do some work in exchange for putting your tiny house on someone's property. For example, there's a ton of examples, ton of ways that this could happen, situations. One would be perhaps an elderly person that needs someone to go get groceries for them, right? Or do little errands, and you could park your tiny house on his or her land, and in exchange for doing some little small errands here and there, which would be a really good situation because it's free for everyone. Yeah, and so the basic idea, you can think of just about any situation would be where you park on the land for free in exchange for doing stuff. So like trading your work for parking. I mentioned that earlier, even with the RV park situation, the guy that did work around the RV park in exchange for allowing his and his wife bus to be on the property. And if you want to see a video of their bus, you can click right here. Really, really good video. And the last way I want to mention that you could park your tiny house, which I think is by far the best way, and this assumes that you're in this type of situation, is to buy your own cheap piece of land. And this assumes that you live outside the city, or you're going to live outside the city, or you're willing to live outside the city, which land is going to be much cheaper. For example, I'm here on this piece of property that I bought back in 2012-13 for $2,000. It's a little over 3 acres. And my dad has his tiny house parked here. And his yearly bills are $39. Now $39 is the taxes on this piece of property. And he pays a little bit of propane, but we're about to switch that out with a wood stove. But the benefit of this is we're at liberty to do what we want for the most part. It's a very, very rural area. It's about 30 miles outside of Wilmington, North Carolina. And we have cabins here and tree houses and a rainwater catchment system. If you want to see how we built that, click right here. That'll take you to it. But yeah, it's not a bad setup because, like, for example, my father's going to do things here to make living even cheaper for food. He's going to start growing his own, like, square foot gardening, have chickens out here. And then even also a lot of the cabins that are here on the property is going to be Airbnb for extra income. So yeah, here on the property it generates its own electricity and catches its own water, so there's really no utilities, no bills at all. So if you're in a situation where you can buy cheap land and you know you're going to be in the area for a while and you're willing to be, in my opinion, the best way to park a tiny house is to buy your own land. So if anyone says, if you read on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere and they say things like, there's nowhere to park tiny houses, so I'm not even bothering with it, it's not true. Here's a good example. And go on Tiny House Swoon and everywhere, listings, YouTube, all these places. The thousands of people currently living in a tiny house are proof that yes, there are places to park a tiny house. So don't listen to the hype, don't listen to it, it's not true. You might have to think outside the box a little bit, but it's worth it. The payoff is well worth it. So anyways, thanks for watching. See you on the next video.